Go live. Hello and welcome to our webcast for November 22, 2019. My name is Christian Debré and this is Amy Asbrook, the director of Toujours Vivant, Not Dead Yet.
Hello.
Also joining us, this is Taylor Hyatt, who's over there. Okay. Taylor Hyatt, our policy analyst and outreach coordinator. Toujours Vivant, Not Dead Yet is a non-religious organization by and for people with disabilities. We believe that the choice to die is not free as long as old, ill, and disabled people don't have a free choice in where and how they live. And that must change.
Yep.
Today's topics. A doctor finds problems with MAiD compliance. A surprise.
Yeah,
okay.
Get a surprise.
New Zealand Parliament sent euthanasia to referendum. And the last one is detail of detail of our December 6th online discussion.
Okay.
So Amy will help us through those subjects. And the cat tried to drink in the glass of my wine.
Yeah. You should probably. Oh, there she goes. The cat had to get off of the table. Okay. So recently, Taylor attended a conference where a few lectures on euthanasia were presented. She was impressed by the talk given by Dr. David D'Souza, a chronic pain specialist in Toronto. His talk focused on eligibility for euthanasia, and he included the stories of 3 people considering euthanasia whom he had seen in his practice. Dr. D'Souza expressed concern that the safeguards around euthanasia eligibility were being flouted in all 3 cases. So only one of them ended up receiving euthanasia, but in all 3 cases, they were being presented as possible candidates for euthanasia.
Yeah, and there was some mistake, at least.
Yeah. When visiting a nursing home, Dr. D'Souza met an elderly lady with dementia named Janice. Her condition had progressed, quote, to the point where she couldn't recognize her own family and had limited communication abilities, unquote. Janice's family asked to meet with the doctor and requested that she be euthanized.
The family asked for.
Yeah. Family asked that she be euthanized.
Not Janice.
Right. They brought a will that Janice had written 10 years before, while in the early stages of dementia.
A long time ago.
Which stated that she would want to be euthanized. Dr. D'Souza told the family that Janice was not a candidate for euthanasia. According to the eligibility criteria, the person must request MAiD themselves. No one can do it on their behalf. He also told them the law requires the person to be able to give consent at the time of the procedure, while Janice was not competent to do, which she was not competent to do. Dr. D'Souza also pointed out that Janice may have sufficient quality of life that she still enjoys.
Yes. It's obvious she never asked for
Your
it.
loved ones just...
Go ahead, Taylor.
Nope. Your loved ones just might be your harshest critic when it comes to living with a disability. They know you well, and hopefully they want what's best for you, just like they, instead of feeling their own inconvenience in the face of your disability. But even then, they may not realize how well you've adjusted to your condition, or that you can manage just fine without living up to all of society's standards.
Right, and that's the other thing is people are dealing with their own grief over your declining condition. And, you know, they oftentimes project their expectations onto the person with a disability and say, oh, well, I would not want to live like that, therefore she doesn't. Okay. The second incident took place, quote, shortly after euthanasia was legalized, unquote, in 2016. A middle-aged man named Eddie, who spent 2 months on a waiting list for palliative care, came to Dr. D'Souza. He was a wheelchair user and amputee, and he was on dialysis. Eddie only had his wife for support and had decided to discontinue dialysis completely. By the time Eddie saw Dr. D'Souza, he hadn't had dialysis for over 3 weeks and so had nausea, fatigue, uncontrolled pain, and death. He also,
Uncontrolled pain.
right,
That's
yeah.
sucks.
Well, yeah, it sure does. And that's what happens if you have been having urea in your blood for 3 weeks.
Yes, but normally uncontrolled pain, the doctor is supposed to control all pain.
Right, but he was on a waiting list.
Yeah, but
For palliative
ordinary doctor should control pain.
Right, exactly. He also reported a low mood along with feelings of hopelessness. Eddie had submitted a request for euthanasia. Eddie's first words to the doctor were, "Are you here to relieve my pain? Are you here to relieve my suffering?" Dr. D'Souza said yes. Then Eddie asked him whether he was here to end my life. Upon hearing no, Eddie asked, "Why not? Isn't that part of your job? I heard about this MAiD thing on TV. Isn't that what you do?" Dr. D'Souza provided palliative care and explained that that wasn't what he did. And he provided palliative care to Eddie, who withdrew his MAiD request. Dr. D'Souza reported that although Eddie chose to decline further dialysis sessions, he later died peacefully and comfortably and of natural causes with the assistance of genuine palliative care.
Yeah.
I was struck by his comment, well, isn't that what you do? Is there now an expectation that all chronic pain relief includes the potential option to die, or the expectation that all doctors become euthanasia providers?
Yeah, yeah. And that's the scary thing. The last story is about a man in his 70s named Jim. He was concerned about hardness in his abdomen, so he had a hard thing in his gut. Early tests suggested gastrointestinal cancer as a possible cause.
Just possible.
Yeah. The first thing Jim said after receiving these test results was, "I want to be euthanized." Dr. D'Souza tried to steer the conversation in a different direction and said, "Jim, you don't qualify for that. You don't even have a diagnosis. Let's first figure out what diagnosis you have, and we can talk about all that later."
There's many things that could cause you a hard belly,
Yeah.
not cancer.
Yeah. So Jim was set for a CAT scan. A few weeks later, Dr. D'Souza received a report from the hospital. Jim had gone there the day before his initial appointment and demanded to be euthanized. He was admitted to the hospital but refused further testing. He also turned down meetings with a surgeon, an oncologist, and a psychiatrist. Instead, he met with the euthanasia team, including a nurse practitioner and a physician. They determined that he met the eligibility requirement for medical assistance in dying.
Yeah.
Dr. D'Souza visited Jim on the day he was euthanized. Dr. D'Souza recalled that, quote, "He was in no apparent pain or distress. He was smiling. He was excited for the big event. And so was his family. His family was surrounding him, and they had dressed him in a very nice suit, and they were very, very excited. He told me he wanted to have a dignified death, not caused by unknown and unpredictable factors. So, go ahead, Taylor.
So his family was excited, and he was wearing a suit. That's usually what you do for a party, not for your passing. I wonder how much of the celebration was inspired by his family's possible relief at not having to care for Jim or see him during his illness.
Right. And one thing I said during the French webcast was that it's a little unrealistic to dress somebody in a suit when they're going to die, because when you die, your sphincters let go, and that means you pee and you poop.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, and it just sort of, well, unrealistic sometimes people are about this whole event. They think, oh, it's going to be a little beautiful event. Yeah.
Not so much beautiful.
Right.
That is never a beautiful thing.
Yeah, my brother-in-law uses the expression, when somebody dies, he says the person shit the bed. Which is really, quite simple. Dr. D'Souza pointed out eligibility criteria that were disregarded and safeguards that were overlooked when Jim's request for euthanasia was approved. First, the person must have a serious and incurable illness, disease, or disability. Jim did not have a definitive diagnosis at all. He refused investigation and specialist assessments. Therefore, he did not know if he had an incurable illness. I mean, he could have had some leakage in his intestines or
polyp or whatever. It could be just a tumor, but non-cancer tumor.
Right.
Okay.
Basketball
You never
tumor.
know.
Yeah. Next, the person must be in an advanced state of irreversible decline. Not knowing the condition, it was impossible to know whether it was in decline. Even if further tests confirmed that he had cancer, his prognosis would depend on a number of factors, including the primary source of cancer, presence of metastases, and the type of tumor. These factors would then suggest treatment options such as chemotherapy and or surgery, unquote. So without knowing what you have, you don't know if you're in an advanced state.
Oh, you are dead, sir. Sorry, it was not a cancer.
Right. If you're dead, you know that you're in an advanced state of irreversible decline, but if you don't know. The person must have the physical or psychological suffering that is intolerable to them. The MAiD team reported that he was not in pain, and he was deemed to be in intolerable suffering. So again, this is that whole question about what is suffering. And, they talk about suffering as if it's pain, but it's not often pain. Dr. D'Souza also mentioned that Jim did not see a psychiatrist, so it was impossible to know whether emotional issues may have played a role in his decision to request euthanasia. Asking to die while refusing to obtain an accurate diagnosis suggests an impulsive and emotional choice, so that he was already prone to suicidal feelings.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that would be my guess. The doctor also believes the 10-day waiting period is arbitrary and inadequate. He doesn't know, quote, any physician who has been able to completely cure anxiety or depression in 10 days, unquote.
Most medication targeting brain things take 3 to 4 weeks to be efficient.
At least 2 weeks to kick in. And
so 2 weeks is 14 days. It's not 10.
Right, exactly. Those potential violations were discovered by someone who, with an extensive experience in the medical field and knowledge of the Canadian euthanasia program, who took the time to share his insights. These case histories give us a glimpse into how the MAiD program works on the ground. Multiply Dr. Susan's experience by the number of practitioners performing MAiD. So if we talked the other week about how there were 408 in Quebec, and you could probably just guesstimate there might be 1,000 people practicing euthanasia. And if he presented 3 cases, that's 3,000. And, you know, those 3,000 people, that's a lot of people that might not be getting the right care.
Yeah.
A frightening picture emerges.
Oh, yeah.
Basically. It also raises troubling questions. Was Jim's euthanasia seen as compliant with the law upon review by
From
the
my point of
designated
view,
authorities?
no.
Yeah. You know, we don't know what the process is in Ontario, but we know in Quebec they go through some review of the euthanasias, even though we have identified that there are problems with that. And the question is, did anybody look at that process and say, oh, gee, they didn't even know what he had. He wasn't eligible. How many ineligible people are being euthanized when MAiD evaluation teams don't completely grasp or strictly apply the eligibility criteria and safeguards? And if this isn't a slippery slope, what is? Do you really listen to the show? No. Okay, our second topic. A New Zealand parliament sends euthanasia to a referendum. The following article by Wendy Wicks appeared on the website of The Guardian on November 14th of 2019. On November 13th, New Zealand MPs voted to adopt the end-of-life choice bill, despite any number of warnings that it is a dangerous piece of work. It is risky to disabled people and unsafe to all. In 2016, Canada passed euthanasia legislation, and a consortium of appalled disabled Canadians fought a desperate rearguard action to bring in a vulnerable person standard, or VPS. Quote, we'd not need that sort of thing, I thought. Clearly, I was complacent. And again, this is Wendy speaking. Disabled Australians, Canadians, and Americans are appalled by the euthanasia bills, while British, Irish, and Scots are incandescent.
Yeah.
I feel betrayed by Parliament's vote. Do we need something like a vulnerable person standard here for disabled New Zealanders? I wonder.
They was betrayed like we was in Canada.
Yeah. Now all that stands between us and this bill is a referendum scheduled to coincide with our next general election in 2020. Then there may be no way for the community of disabled people like me, 25% of New Zealand's population, to feel safe from wrongful death. The law creates a risk to individuals in our community of disabled people and to our community as a whole. How can any MP be able to agree to a measure that endangers a whole community of people that they are not a member of? Our legislative safeguards have stepped into the shadows, and too many MPs think that's an acceptable trade-off. A friendly Queen's Counsel commented on my vulnerability to the law by saying, "You're toast." Me and how many other disabled people does that include? Our concerns about the bill are many. They include that the bill cannot and does not make firm distinctions between terminal illness and disability or chronic conditions.
Could be long to determine the difference between those things.
Or depression or other mental illness. It relies on prognosis and diagnosis, which are imprecise arts. It doesn't protect against coercion or consent, abuses, or prevent euthanasia where the person is incompetent.
Like in Canada.
Right. Because even though those protections are written into the law, we know that people who are incompetent are being euthanized.
Yes.
It doesn't allow for a cooling down period like in Oregon or Victoria, Australia have. Safeguards are vague and lax. Worse still, there's a sense that a certain level of wrongful death is acceptable. Nearly 39,000 people wrote public submissions as the bill went through the parliamentary processes. Over 90% of them said, no legalizing euthanasia, thank you. For a total population of nearly 5 million, it was the largest number of submissions ever to any proposed New Zealand law. But even this clear response, painfully little impact on MPs who seemed to respond to other stimuli or were mired in their individualistic tragedy narratives. The suffering they knew of somewhere else, the individual stories, or the 10% who said, yes, change it, was much more important to them.
We submitted a document to Parliament as well. I'm fascinated by Ms. Wick's observation, the number of wrongful deaths is okay. Where does this come from? Selfishness, ignorance? What makes people say if a certain number of people lose their lives, then shouldn't?
Probably all of the above.
Yeah. Exactly. And, that's something that Not Dead Yet has said in the United States has said as well, that, with these policies, what those policies are really saying is that a certain number of deaths are considered acceptable losses. And, we're counting up those deaths and we're trying to get people to care about them, but apparently people don't. Yes, there are many individual stories, both for and against the bill. All deserve respect because telling them takes effort. But there's more to good law than basing it on individual stories. It's about the collective impact on our communities. It should be a good, safe law for all. That's what MPs are there to do, but they didn't. And there's the referendum to come. The question in it just says, do you support the bill? Too vague. It is to be hoped that the population at large can do a sound job, but that depends on the quality and range of information they get. MPs had a huge range of sound, factual information, but judging from their voting record, many clearly disregarded heaps of it, instead leaving Janet and John Voter to do the work. Who knows if the public will get good information to enable choice? And one of the things that happens in referenda is the people who have the money are going to get, paid for the advertising. Right. And the people who promote euthanasia and assisted suicide have a lot of money. And the people on the other side who have money are the church and the doctors. And the church's arguments don't sell well with a mainstream audience. So unless the church is willing to use more secular arguments, we're sunk.
Yeah. Fear is a powerful motivator.
Yeah. Maybe they'll vote yes because they think this bill allows things that are already legal, like adequate pain relief. Polls on the issue show worrying levels of awareness. So I hope the information providers can do a good job for Janet and John Voter.
It doesn't have to do it well in Canada because even over there, many people have a lot of different thinking about what is MAiD. Okay, it comes from almost nothing to you killing people and all between.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. Maybe they can do a great job for Janet and John Voter, who really need it. Again, this is Wendy speaking. I convene Not Dead Yet, Aotearoa.
Close to that.
Aotearoa. Dang.
It's
a 6-syllable word.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a word meaning New Zealand, but in Maori.
Yes. And anyway. The nationwide disabled run network. We have opposed the legalization of euthanasia for some years now. The opposition we express is consistently based on concerns that society is full of negative, biased, and discriminatory attitudes and behaviors, so that people think disabled lives are less worthy. In this attitude as a basis, the state provides the state provides really limited support for us to live well. So it's disturbing when laws are put up that mean the state will provide the means to die, but not live. That's where we are now. We aren't dead yet, and we don't want state-sanctioned death support.
Yes.
So our final subject, with the cat who still wants to go out.
Poor kitty.
Poor kitty. Details for December 6th online discussion. TVNDY will present our December 6th webcast as an online discussion using the Zoom teleconferencing system. Our goal is to mobilize and support people who are fighting back against the pressure to accept medical assistance in dying. During our online discussion, we hope to learn about how people are being pressured to request MAiD, look at political and legal options to challenge or modify the MAiD law, and build a supportive community of people who faced pressure to end their lives. We were inspired to do this by the Truchon decision, Parliament's plan to modify the MAiD law, and the growing number of cases highlighting problems with life-ending practices that have come to light over the past few months. And we give links to our webcasts of August 23rd, September 20th, November 1st, November 8th, and of course, today's webcast, where we talked about problems.
Yeah. So you just by the number of webcasts that we do, you could see that it's a very, very important problem.
Yeah. When we launched our webcast in 2013, we imagined it as an online discussion, but we've never had a big enough audience to make it happen that way. We hope that with a few years' experience and more than 400 English and French webcasts available at our website to draw on, we can create a supportive environment to talk about what assisted suicide and euthanasia mean for disabled Canadians. The English online discussion will be held on Friday, December 6th, 2019 at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the meeting should last between 30 and 60 minutes, depending on how many people participate. Zoom conferencing software also allows people to speak and participate orally or to type chat messages.
Yeah.
All points of view expressed respectfully are welcome. For more information or to request computer-assisted real-time transcription, please email us at info@tv-ndy.ca.
So even people who are against our opinion are welcome to give their opinion.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so, and then I give a bunch of phone numbers and stuff. We've put the invitation up on our Facebook page and it'll be up on our website as well. so people can get the information for how to dial in either via the computer to participate online, to participate by phone, or if you're using a mobile phone, to use the one-tap system. So, and one other note, please note that we are off next week for American Thanksgiving. So our next webcast will be December 6th. So if you have any questions or want more information about the topics that we discuss here, you can visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/toujours vivant, not dead yet. Visit our website at tvndy.ca. You can email us at info@tv-ndy.ca, or you can follow us on Twitter @TVNDY. Thanks to Christian for helping out.
Thank you,
And thanks to Taylor as well, and the cat.
Thank you, Taylor, and thank you, the cat.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.